Autumn in Vermont always possessed a magical beauty as the maple leaves transformed from vibrant green to brilliant shades of gold, deep red, and fiery orange. The crisp, cool air carried the scent of damp earth and dry leaves, weaving through the branches and caressing the skin. But for Alara Vance, this beauty only intensified the melancholy in her heart. The young lady of the prestigious Vance family, a lineage with a long history and a colossal fortune built on the timber industry, was facing a bitter arranged marriage, a fated sentence from which she could not escape. Alara, 25 years old, with hair as golden as the autumn sun and eyes as blue as a serene lake, had always dreamed of a free love, a simple life where she could paint and enjoy nature, unburdened by rules or interests. She yearned to live a life of her own, to freely explore the world and express her artistic soul. But fate had pushed her into the vortex of family machinations, where personal love and happiness were traded for power and financial stability. Her father, Richard Vance, a strict and ambitious man with cold, sharp eyes and a decisive voice, had decided to marry her off to Gideon Thorne, a real estate billionaire. Gideon Thorne was nearly 30 years her senior and was known by the chilling nickname, the Widower, a reputation that sowed fear and suspicion. His two previous wives had both died mysteriously within a few years of marriage, causing rumors of his cruelty, dominance, and even more horrific things to circulate through the upper echelons of society. Gideon Thorne lived a secluded life on a vast estate in the Vermont countryside, far from the city's clamor where neon lights could not reach. His home, an ancient stone structure with towering spires, stood majestically in the sprawling landscape, resembling a medieval castle. This only added to the mystery and a chilling aura surrounding its owner. At dusk, as the faint light of the setting sun cast its glow on the moss-covered stone walls, the house appeared like a colossal ghost, its reflection shimmering on the tranquil lake, creating a scene that was both magnificent and ominous. Alara looked at a photo of the house, feeling as if she were being pushed into a gilded cage where her destiny had been decided without any choice of her own. The wedding day unfolded in heavy silence, devoid of the cheerful sounds of happiness or the sincere blessings of friends and family. Alara wore a pristine white wedding dress, but her soul was tinged with a heavy gray, like the sky before a storm. Gideon Thorne appeared with a cold demeanor, his deep-set eyes betraying no emotion, making it impossible for her to read his thoughts. He was tall and burly, with silver-streaked hair and a face marked with the wrinkles of time and perhaps personal sorrows and burdens he had carried throughout his life. Alara felt a chill run down her spine as he took her hand, his touch rough and cold, a stark reminder of the harsh reality of this marriage. On their wedding night, Alara locked herself in her room, tears streaming down her cheeks, soaking her silk pillow. She couldn't believe her life had taken such a dark turn, a future without light or joy. She remembered the afternoons spent wandering in the woods, picking plump, deep blue blueberries, her hands stained with sap but her heart full of glee. She remembered the winding paths covered in brilliant golden leaves, rustling beneath her feet, where she once dreamed of a bright future and a true love. Now, all that remained were distant memories, fragments of a shattered dream. She felt like a bird trapped in a cage. No matter how beautiful the cage, it was still a prison. Alara's married life began in a frighteningly distant and cold atmosphere. Gideon Thorne was a mysterious, unpredictable man. He spent most of his time in the vast library with its towering bookshelves or in his private office, handling business, seemingly indifferent to her presence. Alara rarely saw him, and when they did meet, their conversations revolved only around dry and uninteresting social pleasantries, lacking any warmth or closeness, like two strangers living under the same roof. Gideon's estate was immense and quiet, sometimes so silent that Alara could hear the sound of a falling leaf or the wind rustling through the ancient trees. Alara spent her time exploring the meticulously manicured gardens, the winding trails leading into the deep woods, and especially a winding wooden path that crossed clear streams where the water flowed and small waterfalls cascaded down, creating a symphony of nature. Here, amidst the wild and majestic scenery, she found a little peace, a temporary escape from the burdens in her heart. She brought her easel and paints, sitting for hours to capture the beauty of nature, from the sun's rays piercing through the leaves to the wildflowers on the roadside. Her paintings were full of color, yet they concealed a deep sadness, a yearning for freedom and happiness. One morning, as Alara was engrossed in painting by the stream, the babbling water and the chirping birds were the only sounds she heard. Suddenly, a tall shadow fell across her canvas. Gideon had appeared. He stood silently behind her, observing every stroke of her brush, every shade of color she applied. Alara was startled, quickly putting down her brush, her heart pounding with fear. "You paint beautifully," Gideon said, his voice low and even, devoid of emotion, yet it took Alara by surprise. "I've never seen anyone capture the spirit of this place so vividly. You've truly grasped its soul." Alara was astonished. This was the first time he had offered a compliment, a remark unrelated to business or social formalities. She gave a slight bow of her head, her cheeks flushed, not daring to look him in the eye. "Thank you," she replied, her voice as soft as a whisper of wind. "You may continue." "Don't let me disturb you," he said, then turned and walked away, leaving Alara with an indescribable feeling. She didn't know if it was relief or a hint of disappointment. From that day on, Gideon frequently appeared while Alara was painting. He didn't say much, just stood and watched, sometimes offering a few brief comments on the light, colors, or composition of the painting. Gradually, Alara felt less tense in his presence. She began to realize that, behind that cold, distant exterior, Gideon was not entirely the terrifying man she had imagined. There was a quietness, a subtle and keen observation hidden within him. One afternoon, while walking in the garden, she saw Gideon sitting on an old stone bench, gazing into the distance where rolling hills were shrouded in a thin mist. His face was marked with fatigue and loneliness, like a stone statue eroded by time. Alara felt a pang of sympathy, a strange feeling creeping into her heart. She approached him, her steps light so as not to startle him. "Are you all right, Gideon?" she asked, her voice gentle, breaking the silence. He was startled, turning to look at her, his eyes showing a hint of surprise. Alara, I'm fine. I was just thinking about old things, memories that have been dormant." Alara sat down beside him, keeping a respectful distance. "Do you want to share? Sometimes sharing can lighten the heart." Gideon looked at her for a long time, his deep eyes seeming to search for something. Then he sighed, a heavy sigh laden with so much sorrow. "You know, Alara, my life has been through many events, many losses. My 2 previous wives both passed away from critical illnesses. I tried my best, did everything I could to save them, but I couldn't keep them. People spread rumors that I am a widower, a bringer of misfortune, but they don't understand my pain, the torment of watching the people I love leave me." Alara was speechless. She had never imagined that Gideon had such a tragic past, a psychological burden he had to carry alone. She felt remorse for having judged him so quickly, for believing the rumors without seeking the truth. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice sincere. "I didn't know you had been through so much." Gideon gave a faint smile, a rare smile that made his face warmer, erasing the usual coldness. "It's all right, Alara. It's not your fault. I've grown used to living with those rumors." From that conversation, the relationship between Alara and Gideon gradually changed, from distance to understanding. They began to talk more, not just about work or scenery, but about their thoughts, feelings, dreams, and fears. Alara realized that Gideon was a profound, intelligent man with a heart full of old wounds, a lonely soul yearning to be shared. She began to see a different Gideon, not the widower, but a pitiful man who needed to be healed. Winter arrived, blanketing the entire estate in a pristine white, transforming the landscape into a sparkling fairy tale. The bare branches were dressed in a fresh white coat, glistening under the weak sunlight. Alara and Gideon spent more time indoors, avoiding the biting cold. They read together in the grand library where the scent of old paper and ink mingled, creating a cozy atmosphere. They played chess, with Gideon patiently guiding Alara through complex moves, and sometimes Gideon would tell Alara stories of his travels to ancient European cities, the mythical bridges spanning the Seine River glittering with lights, and magnificent architectural wonders like Notre Dame Cathedral or the Colosseum. Alara listened intently, her soul soaring to distant lands and vibrant cultures she had never set foot in. His stories were not just descriptions of architecture or history, but also profound insights into people and life, revealing a romantic and refined side of Gideon. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, the fire danced in the space, warming the room and their souls. Gideon unexpectedly gave Alara a small, carefully wrapped gift box. Alara opened it to find a brand new set of paintbrushes with soft, sharp bristles, and boxes of high-quality watercolors in a full spectrum of vibrant shades. "I've noticed your love for painting," Gideon said, a warm light in his eyes. "I hope these will help you create even more beautiful works and bring you joy." Alara looked at him, her eyes welling up with tears. This was the first time someone had cared about her interests, not for personal gain or status, but simply because they wanted her to be happy. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling of being cared for and loved that she had longed for. "Thank you, Gideon," she said, her voice choked with emotion, barely able to get the words out. Gideon gently placed a hand on her shoulder, a soft but meaningful gesture. "Don't call me Mr. Thorne. Please, just call me Gideon." From then on, Alara began calling him Gideon. The distance between them gradually shortened, the invisible walls around their hearts crumbling. Alara realized that Gideon was not the widower, but a lonely man who carried unutterable pain, a man who needed to be loved and healed. One day, Gideon fell gravely ill. A high fever left him delirious, his face pale and his breathing weak. Alara cared for him devotedly, regardless of the hardship or fatigue. She cooked hot porridge, gave him medicine on time, and stayed up at night to monitor his temperature and breathing. She wiped the sweat from his forehead, changed the cold compresses, and whispered words of encouragement. During the days Gideon was bedridden, Alara realized that she had fallen in love with him without even knowing it. This love was not a sudden infatuation, but a love that grew from understanding, sharing, empathy, and genuine care. She realized that she could not live without him. When Gideon recovered, he looked at Alara with eyes full of gratitude and love, a look she had never seen before. "Alara," he said, his voice weak but full of emotion. "Thank you. You saved me, not just from my illness, but you saved my soul." Alara gave a faint smile, her eyes also filled with tenderness. "It's nothing, Gideon. I love you." Gideon held her hand tightly, squeezing it gently. "I love you too, Alara, more than you can ever imagine." Their love blossomed like spring flowers after a long winter, vibrant and full of life. They walked together in the woods, picked blueberries, painted, and enjoyed quiet moments together. Alara no longer felt trapped. She felt freer and happier than ever before. She found joy in simple things, in Gideon's laughter, in the loving look he gave her. Alara and Gideon's life seemed to have reached its fulfillment, but a sudden challenge struck like a storm in a clear sky. A woman named Victoria Sterling, claiming to be the sister of Gideon's second wife, appeared with a look of fury, accusing Gideon of murdering her sister to seize her fortune. Victoria presented fabricated evidence and cleverly staged testimonies, creating a wave of negative public opinion against Gideon. Tabloid newspapers ran sensational headlines. The public was in an uproar, and Gideon's reputation was seriously tarnished. Alara was deeply shaken, her heart constricting. She knew Gideon was not that kind of man. She had seen his vulnerability, his loneliness, and his sincere love. But the evidence Victoria presented was too convincing, too detailed, causing a thread of doubt to creep into her heart, even though she didn't want to believe it. She wrestled with an intense internal conflict between her reason and her feelings, between what she knew about Gideon and what others were trying to prove. Gideon was arrested and put on trial. The courtroom became the center of public attention, with hundreds of reporters and people flocking to it. Alara stood by him, believing in his innocence without a doubt. She hired the best lawyer, a sharp and experienced man, to clear Gideon's name. She herself searched for evidence, digging through old documents, interviewing people who had worked for Gideon and those who had known his two previous wives. She realized that her love for Gideon was not just romantic love, but a love of trust, loyalty, and resilience. During the investigation, Alara discovered that Victoria was a greedy and malicious woman, obsessed with money and status. She had colluded with a professional fraudster, a computer hacker, to stage the case, creating fake emails and suspicious bank transactions, all to seize Gideon's colossal fortune. Alara and Gideon's lawyer collected enough evidence to expose Victoria's plot, including audio recordings of conversations between Victoria and her accomplice, and evidence of Victoria forging her sister's signature. At the trial, when all the evidence against Gideon seemed irrefutable, Alara stood up to testify for him. She walked to the stand, facing hundreds of scrutinizing eyes, but she was not afraid. She recounted the story of their love, of Gideon's transformation, of the emotional wounds he had endured, and of how they found and healed each other. Her words were sincere and full of emotion, her voice clear and strong, moving everyone in the courtroom, many of whom could not hold back their tears. She painted a truthful picture of a different Gideon, not a monster, but a pitiful man who had found love and peace. Finally, with the irrefutable evidence that Alara and the lawyer had gathered, Gideon was declared innocent. Victoria and her accomplice were arrested right in the courtroom and faced legal punishment, receiving fitting sentences for fraud and slander. After the trial, Gideon held Alara tightly, a firm embrace, as if to make up for all the fear and sorrow they had gone through. "You saved me again, Alara," he said, his voice choked with emotion, his eyes welling up. "I owe you my life." Alara gave a faint smile, happy tears rolling down her cheeks. "We don't owe each other anything, Gideon. We just love each other, and that love was enough to overcome everything." After the storms, Alara and Gideon's life returned to peace, a peace they had fought so hard to achieve. They lived happily together on the Vermont estate, where every corner of the garden, every path, held beautiful memories of budding love and healing. Alara continued her passion for painting, and her paintings were now filled with light and joy, reflecting a soul that had been set free and a heart overflowing with happiness. She painted fields of purple lavender, paths covered in golden leaves, clear streams and babbling waterfalls, and the simple moments of their daily life. Gideon also became more open. He no longer lived a secluded life in the library or office. He spent more time with Alara, walking with her, talking with her, and sharing quiet moments together. He also actively participated in charity work, using his fortune to help the less fortunate, especially orphaned children and the elderly. He had found new meaning in life, not just in business, but also in sharing and contributing. They often hosted warm family gatherings, inviting friends and relatives to their home. The sounds of laughter filled the estate, with delicious meals, stories being told, and songs being sung. Alara and Gideon became a model couple, a testament that true love can overcome all challenges, prejudices, and storms of life. They were a symbol of healing, of faith, and of a boundless love. One autumn afternoon, as the maple leaves once again turned to brilliant gold, fiery orange, and deep red, Alara and Gideon sat together on the old stone bench in the garden, where they had had their first conversations. Alara leaned her head on Gideon's shoulder, feeling his warmth and peace, watching the glorious sunset. As the last rays of the day stained the entire space in gold, creating a breathtaking and magical painting, like a dream. "Do you remember the first day we met?" Alara asked, her voice as gentle as a whisper. "How scared I was of you, how I thought my life would sink into darkness." Gideon gave a faint, contented, and happy smile. "I did too, Alara. I thought you would never accept a man like me, a man who carried so many scars and rumors." "But I did," Alara said, squeezing his hand gently. "And I don't regret a single second. You are the light of my life." Gideon held her hand tightly, placing a soft kiss on her golden hair. "And you are mine, Alara. I love you more than anything I have. You are the most wonderful gift life has ever given me." They sat there in silence, enjoying the peaceful moment together, listening to the rustling wind through the leaves and the chirping of birds. Their love was not just a romantic love, but a love of healing, understanding, and sharing. They had found each other amidst a cruel destiny, and together built a life of fulfillment, full of happiness where every day was a gift. The story of Alara and Gideon is a testament that true love can blossom from seemingly impossible circumstances, and that the simple beauty of life and warm family moments are the most precious things we can find. And sometimes, happiness comes from the places we least expect, like the sweet blueberries picked on a serene autumn afternoon, or the paths covered in golden leaves that lead to a warm heart, where we find peace and eternal love.